Real quick before we get into today's video, just want to thank all the people over on Patreon for all their support, because without their help, the upgraded content that you see on the channel, that you really see in the video essays and a few of the lore discussions, would not be possible without their help. But over on the Patreon, you get sneak peeks of videos months in advance. Patrons also get priority on the Q&As. Every 3 months we do an anime and manga haul, and I give away a lot of good goodies in that. And it's also just really cool to talk to you guys in the DMs. And if some of you guys have theories that you want me to talk about on the channel, obviously I will talk about your theories. Just send them to me over on the Patreon. But with that being said, let's get into the review. Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Naruto Explain here, bringing you guys another review for Boruto Naruto Next Generations, episode 240. And now that episode 240 is done in the books, man, we got a lot to talk about in today's episode. And I gotta go ahead and say, if you are somebody like me and you have been using Verve to watch the episode, when you log on Verve as of this recording, you're not able to see episode 240. So I watched this episode over on Hulu. Now, with that part out of the way, I'm gonna say that when it comes to this episode, I thought that there were a few thematic choices here in terms of the writing from a craft perspective that I get what they're going for. However, I wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of how long we spent at sea, but I get what they were going for. And given the whole theme with pirates and the whole issue of how the sea is basically a character in of itself in this arc, I kind of understand where they're coming from. I'm more interested in the eventual fallout that's going to come from Ikada and the revelation that Siren is his sister and that he's a member of the Funato clan, and Boruto's reaction to that. That's more so what I'm waiting for. It looks like we're going to be getting that in the next episode that's coming up. Now, backing things up a little bit, I have to say that this whole idea of just starting out with Boruto and Ikada, and they're sharing their dreams, and Ikada, as he's getting more comfortable with Boruto, he's letting more and more slip about his upbringing. He tells him, hey, you know, I want to build a ship because I want to travel the world. And right away you get the idea that it's like, okay, he's obviously running from something, but what is he running from? And everybody who said, I think that he's a member of the Funato clan, congratulations, you're a wonderful prognosticator, because that was all confirmed in this episode that he was born into the clan. And you see the gradual build up towards that revelation at the end of the episode, because as Ikada starts speaking more and more to Boruto, it goes from I want to travel the world to like, yeah, you know, I got a sister and she can be scary at times, and you know, my family was really upset with what was going on with the Mizukage and what the feudal lord of the land of water wanted, and she was the only one that was supportive of me leaving. And it was just one of those things where everything was kind of building up, and it was like, okay, you look like them, you have their eyes, you said that you spent most of your life at sea, you're just waiting for the revelation to come. And what I like about this is that before Boruto can begin connecting the dots, and he's smart enough that he would begin connecting dots, the more that he starts hearing of this dude's backstory, that's when the sea really starts coming into his own as a character. And what we see here is that Boruto, as the waters begin to rage more and more, and you get this really good backdrop of just how well the water looks for the background, you have this moment where Boruto notices that somebody's ship has been capsized, and Boruto immediately is like, hey, Ikada, we got to go over there. And Ikada's like, hey, if we go over there, there's no guarantee that I'll be able to steer the ship back. You know, you really shouldn't underestimate the sea. And you kind of see that as the conversation, and you kind of see that the waters are getting more and more out of control as the disagreement's going. And what I like about that is that that's a great use of setting in order to get a personification out of that setting, more human-like features from something that isn't actually alive. And what I like though is that you can kind of chart the progression up to this moment from the other stuff that you've seen in the episode, where in the very beginning of the episode, when they were learning more about each other, and you saw how Ikada was kind of looking down when he was thinking about his past. The waters are a little bit rough, but for the most part it was calm seas. again, they were a little rough in terms of there were some waves, and that was very fitting just given the nature of their mission, because they got to get that really important piece for the ship's engine. That's so you kind of get your conflict there. But then as their conversation gets deeper and deeper, and you start getting the signs that Ikada is a member of the Funato clan, that's when the waves start getting really out of control. And that's when we transition over to Ikada telling Boruto, hey, I don't know if I can steer us away. And so Boruto has this moment where he takes off his jacket and he's getting ready to jump into the water. And I've already seen a few people kind of meme like, why was he taking off his jacket? Like, he's already getting wet from being in the storm. What good's the jacket gonna do? So that was actually smart what Boruto was doing, because that jacket, it just would have weighed him down. If he would have jumped headfirst into it, it could have potentially drowned him. So, I mean, that's kind of smart what Boruto did on that end. And I have to say that, you know, as Boruto is going through and he's doing that, we have a scene earlier in the episode where you have Sarada and she kind of calls Mitsuki out, like, why are you really following Kawaki? And Mitsuki's like, hey, you know, he was really kind of interesting. And it was just one of those things where maybe Mitsuki was telling the truth, like it just happened to be a coincidence, but he flat out tells Sarada at the same time, like, yeah, you know, I was following Kawaki for a bit. And it's just one of those things where, like, Mitsuki, he's definitely Orochimaru's son. He's highly observant, and I don't know what exactly he saw in the time that he, not we as the audience, but he as a character was around Kawaki, but he's seen something where he at least wants to monitor him, and that's interesting. That means that he's very observant, which means that there's likely something he picked up on off screen that we as the audience, where we saw Kawaki and he's like, hey, you know, Bunten's right, why aren't we just killing him? So it's one of those things where you're seeing more of that Orochimaru side out of Mitsuki kind of show his head. And what I also like is that, you know, Denki kind of gets the moment where he kind of gets to brag about being a tuning, and people are saying they're so surprised, and Iwabe basically says that missions like this are why they get deployed on them. And what I also like about that is that Iwabe makes a very mature comment where he says, our mission was originally to get the researchers out of here. We really don't need to get involved in a big battle in the land of water. And it's because they get the report that Chodro's already not only gone to the front lines, but he's also on a ship that is going directly for the front lines. So it was one of those things where we're definitely getting closer towards a climax. And what's fascinating about the whole thing with Chodro is that it just kind of sets the stage for the fact that Boruto and Team 7, as well as the members of the 7 Ninja Swords of the Mist that are being led by Kagura and Iwabe and Denki's team, they're likely going to get dragged into the battle with the Funato clan. It's going to be because Boruto has that connection with Ikada. And what I like is that as Boruto watches Ikada and he realizes that the person who saved him was actually Ikada, which kind of leads credence to the observation myself and others had, like, hey, when they get into the water, do they get those web type of appearances? It looks like that's the case. Boruto calls him out and he says, hey, you were the person that saved me, weren't you? And what I like about that is that Boruto gets some closure on that. And we had this moment where Ikada says that not even Kajiki knows the truth, that he has those web type of appearances, and he tells Boruto to keep it between himself. So it does look like that's a common trait that you have with the members of the Funato clan. And if that's the case, it kind of makes sense why he would want to keep that quiet. And you kind of get more of their relationship because Kajiki has a moment where he tells Ikada, hey, I've got the part, I've done a lot of the work on it, I want you to finish it up. And it just goes back to what we find out about the relationship where Kajiki, he's teaching him little by little, and it was very symbolic in that he's allowing him to fix the mistake that he made. So it's one thing for them to get the part that's needed. It's another thing for him to, it's literally another thing for him to fix the ship's engine. So I thought that that was kind of cool that you get that bit of payoff and that moment of growth for him. And I also thought that it was kind of cool how after we wrap up that slice of life moment that's there, that's when it transitions over and we see how Siren is sitting there on the ship and she's talking with the huge burly guy there, and she basically agrees that like, hey, it's time for Ikada to step up, and she says that we're gonna go to this island, we're gonna see the trader, and we're gonna handle that. However, I'm gonna be the one that deals with my brother. And then you get another moment where Tenma is just chomping at the bits, and he's saying like, okay, the Mizukage has gone out on the front lines. I can't wait to show what I'm capable of as a ninja. I'm gonna put hands on the Mizukage. And it's one of those things where he didn't drop Chojiro's name, but the fact that he hears Chojiro has gone to the front lines and he's chomping at the bits to get into battle, common sense would say that's who he's actually looking to engage with. And so we're getting, once again, just a clear picture of how strong some of these Funato clan members are. So I'm kind of curious to see how they're going to handle that battle, because it's been a very slow build-up. So I'm expecting one hell of a fight. I'm not expecting like episode 189 level choreography. I'm not expecting super crazy animation like episodes 175 and 204 and 135. But what I will say though is that based off of some of the information that's kind of come out, like Studio Pierrot, they got some people cooking up something. I think that they might be cooking up something for the climax of this arc. I think that we're likely going to be seeing this climax in probably the next 6 to 8 episodes. That should be enough to round out the home media release. So overall, this was okay. Again, I understood the whole point of man versus sea and showing it as a parallel to the internal struggle for Ikada as a character is actually good writing. I just wasn't a huge fan of the episode. But again, I don't have to be a fan of something to acknowledge when it's actually written well. And I think that sometimes that's what people get mixed up with. People will hear me heap some level of praise on an episode and say, oh, this episode was trash. I'm like, I don't disagree that I wasn't a fan of it, but I'm not going to call it trash because I can see a few things in the episode from a writing perspective that actually makes sense. So, I mean, this was okay. This was, honestly, it was average. So, I mean, I kind of want to know from you guys. So I know for a fact that there's some of you guys who really enjoy this arc, and I can't wait to see some of you guys' comments on it. But, so always, guys, if you like anything I had to say, don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching to the end. Have an awesome day, guys.